Mel Tucker fired at Michigan State. Say something intriguing while I clear my throat.
Michigan State has told Mel Tucker they intend to fire him.
Yes. I thought
Basically.
you were going to say something intriguing since I said say something intriguing.
Well, no, I'm just going to say
you could have just responded with John used to do that to me. I'd say something interesting while I clear my throat, and he'd say something interesting. Mel Tucker's I've been told by Michigan State he is going to get fired, and part of a phone sex scandal that was not very Spartan like. Instead of "We are Sparta," Mel Tucker would pick up the phone and say, "We are sexting." No, he didn't say that. But how can this affect the Vols? Because any coaching shuffle has connections. These guys are all intertwined like coral. And could Tennessee see any of its coaches poached, or how do you see this playing out as far as affecting the Vols? Mel Tucker will be fired at Michigan State. And by the way, he was supposed to get the Tennessee job, but the Vols went with Jeremy Pruitt. So the worst of two evils, paying players or sexting with somebody that's a advocate against sexual harassment. They both seem pretty bad. Go ahead, Kevin.
Tim Banks, I could see being targeted for this job, maybe as an assistant, not a head coach. A couple other guys connected, but the way it really affects.
Can I stop you there for a second? Why not head coach?
I don't think. I think Michigan. No, I think Tim Banks could start a career as a head coach, but I think right now, given his resume, it'd be a smaller Group of 5 program first. I don't think a Power 5 program that was a top 10 program 2 years ago is going to give him a head coaching job just yet. I don't think he's at that level with his resume.
Fair, and I don't think that Michigan State. I'm gonna disagree with you and agree with you at the same time. I think he's worthy of that type of job, like right now. And the resume should be a little bit bigger. I agree. But I'll tell you this. I don't think they would go down the path of a defensive coach after they just got kind of burned by one with Mel Tucker.
I think they might, because again, Mark D'Antonio, I think D'Antonio was an offensive mind, but you know those offensive coaches that run the program like a defensive program because they're more physical, tough. I mean, Fulmer was that way. Fulmer was an offensive coach, but he ran more of a program from a defensive mindset, I would say. You know, toughness, physicality, all of that. I think Mark Stoops is a very, very, very high quality candidate for this job. And I think Tennessee fans should be rooting for that left and right, because Kentucky is only as good as a coach like Mark Stoops can make them.
And he's a 1.5 century. The other one was Paul Bear Bryant.
Yes, Mark Stoops and Bear Bryant. That's it. That's all you got. And I actually thought Rich Brooks was a very good coach at Kentucky. He maxed out, but Mark Stoops has taken it to another level, which was incredible. Hal Mummy was good, hasn't done what Mark Stoops has done. So, yeah, Mark Stoops, if he can do this at Kentucky, what he's been doing, Tennessee fans should want Stoops out of there now. Because, look, they're still going to beat Kentucky regularly, but right now it's still a game you actually have to prepare for, and you can't just fall out of bed and win. And you don't want to have to deal with that in the future. So Tennessee should want Michigan State right now to go after Kentucky and Mark Stoops. So should Florida. So should the rest of the SEC. Because you already have it outside of this year, Dave. The SEC is a grind on its own. You don't want to have to. You don't want Kentucky to have to be one of those teams you have to worry about, given the rest of your SEC slate.
Agreed. And I respect Stoops every bit as much as you do. But again, a defensive coach, I think they would go along the lines of an offensive coach, try to get some sort of innovator in there. And I don't know that guy's out there necessarily. Can you think of someone perhaps even in the SEC that they would look at and say, that's the guy, that's who they want to go after? I don't see anybody else really in the SEC at the assistant level or a head coach that would leave.
Right. I think Kiffin would be happier at Michigan State.
Well, I knew you were going to go there. I've always got my eye on Kiffin, but I don't think he'll ever leave the SEC. I think he loves the SEC and he realizes that it's analogous to the NFL with the passion, the pay. I think he's frustrated at Ole Miss because there's a glass ceiling there. No, I don't think he would. I don't think he would do that.
Okay. I think, look, Michigan State, I think Michigan State should go for an innovative coach because I do think one of Michigan's biggest problems is they keep and this is one of Harbaugh's biggest problems. It's funny that Ohio State has been the offensive innovation program in the Big Ten over the past 10 years, because if any program can afford to not be the innovative program, it's Ohio State, because there's so much talent in that state. Michigan needs the innovator, and this is why Michigan gets to the playoff and doesn't win. And I honestly, all things being equal, Dave, I think Penn State's a better job than Michigan State or Michigan in football, only because the talent is better in Pennsylvania than it is Michigan.
Yeah, but Michigan does such a great job of rating Ohio. It's almost like their Georgia,
Was it like
area.
Oklahoma rating Texas?
What? Yes, or their Atlanta area when Tennessee's at its best, rating that area. So I don't think it's better than Michigan. I think Penn State's a better job than Michigan State. But I mean, let's be honest too. I mean, you thought Tennessee was an undesirable job for a lot of years, and it was because of all the issues they had and that sort of thing. I mean, how undesirable is Michigan State right now when you got a coach that was involved in a sexual scandal? You have the Larry Nassar thing that's out there, which is just absolutely disgusting. I mean, if I had my choice of Michigan State or Appy State, I might take Appy State over Michigan State. You're never going to win there. I mean, you're never going to win the Big Ten at Michigan State. You're always second fiddle to Michigan.
Yeah, and it's going to be more in the news for the next 2 years because, as we know, Simone Biles is going back to the Olympics, who was the most high-profile victim of Larry Nassar. And
I'll just say, for those of you that don't know, you can Google it. I don't want to get into it because it's gross.
It's gross.
It has to do with sexually assaulting female adolescents and minors.
Which is why, by the way, when she had whatever she had a couple of years ago and people said she let her team down, the gymnastics team at the Olympics, Simone Biles owes that Olympic team nothing.
I think it's called the Zoomies or the Swirlies.
Something like that. I forget what it's called, but she owes that Olympic team nothing, okay? Because they covered up for Larry Nassar sexually assaulting her, and she's not getting paid in those Olympics. Okay, she's nice enough to just go compete with them, and so is every member that was a victim of the Larry Nassar trial. But you're right, Larry Nassar, Michigan State, and the Olympic team covering up for it. And then this is probably why they came down so hard on Mel Tucker, by the way. I mean, also, they might have come down because, Dave, I think they wanted to get out of having to pay out his contract.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Michigan State, SEC equivalents to me around the level of Ole Miss. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think that they're in the middle of the pack there, and they probably can't win a championship, but they can have a good 10-win season now and again, but they're probably on average an 8-win type of program. So I think that's pretty fair, but I can tell you this.
I actually think they're higher in the Big Ten than Ole Miss is in the SEC, but that's because the SEC has more national brands than the Big Ten. I mean, I think after Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, Michigan State might be the fourth best job.
Let me ask you this, because it would be huge if Mark Stoops left for Tennessee's betterment. So you're Mark Stoops, and he's making a good bit of coin at Kentucky. You're Mark Stoops. They've built you a facility. They've got the Kroger field where you can check in and check out. And if Michigan State came to you and said, I will offer you double, I will give you the same stupid contract we gave Mel Tucker, double the cash, will you come? And you're Mark Stoops, you say,
I think you go take it. I think you go take it.
I don't even take the phone call.
You don't take the phone call from Michigan State?
Nope.
You stay at Kentucky?
Yep.
Where John Calipari is going to try to railroad your program every other day?
I do. I know it sounds crazy. I don't want any part of Michigan State. I don't want.
I will give you this. The only thing I will say is we've looked at the potential annual rivals for the SEC, and Kentucky's probably going to have the easiest slate because I think theirs is going to be Missouri and Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, which is like a dream, like annual 3-game rivalry. And with the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams, Kentucky has a chance to be in the race every 4 years if you're Mark Stoops.
I think Mark Stoops is going to be the front end of a trend here before long because it's all offense right now. And he's a defensive coach who's done a good job at Kentucky running a program. And I think that if let's say a Colorado came to him and said, we're going to give you the money to hire the assistant coaches you need, I think he could have very, very good success and get approached by a big time program. I'm talking about a top third Power 5 program, which is Power 3 now or whatever the heck it is.
Well, that's what the Big Ten is trying right now with Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. And I don't know if it's going to last or not, but because Luke Fickell's having, I think, a bad first year. But Luke Fickell did that at Cincinnati and got them to the playoff.
The problem with Luke Fickell is he just seems to have trouble making up his mind.